It began as a quiet morning inside Buckingham Palace, until a royal guard stumbled upon something that should never existed outside the Queen's private vaults. Hidden behind an antique tapestry, wrapped in linen older than time, were jewels once worn by Queen Elizabeth herself. And the name whispered behind the scandal? Camilla's son. The moment that secret escaped the palace walls, the air in London seemed to shift. Suspicion, loyalty, and legacy all colliding in one explosive question. Who really betrayed the crown? If this story already has your heart racing, you're in for much more. Hit that like button, subscribe, and tap the bell icon, because the deeper we go, the more unbelievable the royal secrets become. And trust me, by the end you'll see the palace in a way you've never imagined. All right, ready? Let's step through the gates of history together. The morning at Buckingham Palace had started like any other. Polished marble floors, distant echoes of footsteps, and the faint scent of polished silver wafting through the grand halls. But for Royal Guard Thomas Whitaker, that day felt different. He couldn't explain why, only that an unease clung to him like London fog. He'd served the royal family for over 15 years, through ceremonies, parades, and even the late Queen's final days. He knew the rhythm of the palace better than his own heartbeat. But when he was assigned to inspect an unused corridor near the old library, something inside him stirred. A quiet voice whispering that this was no ordinary patrol. The hallway was cold and dim, a place untouched since Queen Elizabeth's passing. Portraits of monarchs past seemed to watch him as he walked, their painted eyes gleaming faintly under the muted morning light. And then he noticed it. A tapestry slightly crooked, a corner lifted just enough to reveal the faint shimmer of something behind it. Thomas frowned, glancing around. The cameras in this section hadn't been updated in years. One had a blinking red light, another was dead entirely. He reached for the tapestry and lifted it. Behind it, hidden in the wall's recess, was a small wooden box. Dusty, plain, yet unmistakably deliberate. He hesitated before touching it. Something about the air felt charged, like he was trespassing on a secret not meant to be found. Slowly he opened the lid and froze. Inside were jewels that shimmered with the light of their own. The unmistakable sparkle of the Queen's favorite diamond brooch, the same one she wore during her historic meeting with President Obama. Beside it lay a sapphire-encrusted bracelet, a royal heirloom missing for months, dismissed as misplaced during transition. But these weren't just misplaced, they were hidden. Thomas's pulse quickened. Every guard in the palace knew the jewels were secured in the royal collection, guarded by alarms and layers of clearance. What were they doing here, tucked behind a forgotten wall? And then came the note. Folded, yellowed slightly at the edges, tucked beneath the jewels. It bore a single name, handwritten with elegant penmanship that sent a chill down his spine. For T. Thomas stared at the letter. His own name began with T, but the signature below told a different story. T. Parker Bowles, Camilla's son. He inhaled sharply. That couldn't be right. Tom Parker Bowles was known more for his culinary ventures and occasional public appearances than royal politics. Why would he be involved with the Queen's private jewels? Footsteps echoed nearby. Thomas closed the box quickly, his heart thudding in his ears. Two other guards appeared at the end of the hall, chatting casually about the day's rota. He nodded to them, trying to look calm, but his mind was racing. Should he report it immediately or wait? The palace was a world of whispers, and one wrong word could end a career. Or worse, bury the truth forever.
He decided to follow protocol. Quietly, he brought the box to the security office, his movements careful, deliberate. But when he entered, the officer in charge wasn't there. Only a desk, a phone, and a cup of tea still steaming. He waited. 10 minutes passed. 15. The air grew heavy. Then the door opened, not with a familiar creak of security chief, but the firm stride of someone else. A tall man in a dark suit entered, his badge gleaming faintly. Royal Intelligence Liaison. Corporal Whitaker. The man greeted smoothly. I understand you found something unusual. Thomas's throat went dry. I was about to log it, sir. The man smiled thinly. No need. Her Majesty's office has been informed. I'll take it from here. He extended a gloved hand toward the box. Thomas hesitated. Something about the man's tone, polite but rehearsed, didn't sit right. With respect, sir, I think protocol says. I am protocol, the man interrupted softly, his smile fading. Hand it over, guardsman. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then, reluctantly, Thomas placed the box on the table. The man nodded once, tucked it under his arm, and walked out without another word. Thomas stood frozen. The air felt heavier now, his instincts screaming that something deeper was unfolding, something not even the guards were supposed to know. That night, the palace glowed softly under the moonlight, but peace was nowhere to be found. Inside the guards' quarters, whispers spread like wildfire. Someone had seen a convoy leaving the rear gates at midnight. No license plates, no insignia, just tinted cars disappearing into the fog. Thomas, one of his comrades, whispered, "What's going on?" "They say the Queen's jewels are missing again." He shook his head, staring into his cup of tea. "They're not missing," he muttered. "They were hidden." Hidden by who? He hesitated. Saying the name aloud felt dangerous, almost treasonous, but he couldn't stop himself. Camilla's son. The room fell silent. A spoon clinked against a mug somewhere, then nothing. Every man there understood the weight of what that meant. By morning, rumors had already begun to leak. Not to the press yet, but through the palace's invisible channels. A whisper in one ear, a cautious nod in another, and like wildfire, the word reached Kensington. Prince William was the first to demand answers. Calm but cold, his tone cut to the council like steel. "If what's being suggested is true," he said, "then this isn't just theft, it's betrayal." But even he didn't yet know the full truth, that what Thomas found wasn't just a box of jewels. It was a message, a coded one. That evening, unable to sleep, Thomas went back to his post. His thoughts wouldn't rest. He replayed every detail, the tapestry, the dust, the note's folded edges. Then something clicked. He remembered the handwriting, not from the signature, but from a framed letter once displayed in the royal dining room. A thank-you note from Camilla's son to the Queen, written years ago. It matched. He felt the blood drain from his face. It wasn't a coincidence. The jewels had been placed there deliberately, and that letter was meant to be found. But why? To send a message? To test loyalty? Or to expose a fracture within the royal family that had been hidden behind smiles and ceremonies for decades? Outside, the palace clock struck midnight. Thomas looked up toward the Queen's old quarters, now dark and silent, and whispered to himself, "Your Majesty, what did they do to your legacy?" He didn't know it yet, but that one discovery would ignite a chain reaction stretching far beyond London, across the Atlantic, straight into the Oval Office, where one man, former President Obama, still carried memories of the Queen's last, unspoken warning to him. And that warning was about to resurface. The news never reached the tabloids. Not yet. But within the palace walls, it spread like smoke from a hidden fire. No one spoke of it directly, yet everyone knew something was wrong. The tension was subtle but suffocating. A tightening of security here, a canceled luncheon there, whispers that ended the moment a senior aide entered the room. And at the center of it all was one name, Tom Parker Bowles. Camilla's son, a man the public saw as harmless, even charming, a writer, a food critic, a figure of quiet distance on the throne. But behind those polished smiles and magazine photos, a question grew louder each day. What exactly did he have to do with the Queen's missing jewels? Inside Clarence's house, the atmosphere was different. Camilla had always prided herself on calm composure. But that morning, as she read the confidential report slipped under her door, her hands trembled just slightly. It wasn't the content alone, it was the source. The report wasn't from an aide or secretary. It came from within the Royal Guard's own internal chain. She read it twice, lips pressed in. A discovery has been made in the North Library wing. Certain royal items traced to Her late Majesty have been found concealed. The note attached bears the initials T.PB. This information is under internal review. The king is not yet informed. For a long moment, She said nothing. The ticking of the antique clock on her desk filled the silence. Then she whispered, "Oh, Tom, what have you done?" But the truth was, even she didn't know. Across the city, Thomas Whitaker had been quietly reassigned. Routine rotation, they said, but everyone in the barracks knew better. Routine didn't usually involve confiscating a man's key card and restricting him to exterior posts. Still, Thomas didn't argue. He knew when to keep his head down, but not his eyes closed. That night, under cover of fog, he saw them again, the same black convoy that had left the palace after midnight. But this time, it didn't vanish toward London's outskirts. It turned toward Windsor. He followed, keeping his distance. He rode his old motorbike along the shadowed lanes until the cars reached a gated estate. There were no guards, no press, just a country home, quiet, expensive, and unmistakably royal. Camilla's private residence. Through the trees, Thomas saw silhouettes move inside. One tall, lean figure pacing with his hands in his hair. Tom Parker Bowles. Another, shorter, seated, calm but firm, Camilla herself. The image alone was enough to confirm his worst fears. Inside, the conversation was tense. "Tom, do you realize what this means?" Camilla hissed, her voice low but sharp. "The Queen's jewels? You could destroy everything your stepfather has built." Tom leaned forward, eyes tired, defiant. "You think I don't know that? I didn't steal them, Mother. I found them. I was trying to return them discreetly." Camilla froze. "Return them?" He nodded, running a hand through his hair. "After she died, there were letters, things the public never saw. The Queen was keeping something secret about the collection. Certain pieces weren't meant to stay in the vault. She said some were gifts, privately owned, not crown property. I thought—" "You thought you could fix it yourself?" "I thought I could protect her legacy," Tom snapped, before someone else twisted it. Camilla's expression softened for a moment, then hardened again. "You should have come to me. Now it looks like you've staged a theft. The guard found the box, Tom. They're tracing it to you." Tom's shoulders sank. Then maybe it's time the truth came out. Camilla closed her eyes, exhaling slowly. "The truth doesn't always protect us, my son. Sometimes it ruins what little peace we have left." Outside, Thomas ducked lower behind a hedge. He could barely make out the words, but the tone said everything: fear, guilt, and something else. Not malice, but confusion, maybe even love. But before he could move, a voice came from behind him. "Enjoying the view, guardsman?" Thomas spun around. Two men in dark suits stood there, their expressions unreadable. Before he could respond, one flashed a badge, Royal Intelligence Liaison, the same department as before. "You've been reassigned," one of them said coldly. "Now you're trespassing." Thomas's instinct screamed at him to run, but he stood his ground. "You're covering something up. The jewels, the note, it's all being buried." The second man tilted his head slightly. "Mr. Whitaker, do you believe everything you see? The royal family has secrets. Yes, but some of them are meant to stay secret, for everyone's sake." The first man stepped forward. "Go home, guardsman, before curiosity costs you your commission." For the first time in his career, Thomas felt truly powerless. He left without a word. The image of Camilla and her son burned into his mind. 2 days later, the palace issued a quiet internal statement. Following a full review, all items have been accounted for. No breach detected. The incident is closed. But not everyone believed it, especially not Prince William. He confronted his father behind closed doors, his tone restrained but filled with fire. "You're telling me a guard found jewels that belonged to Granny, and we're just supposed to pretend nothing happened?" King Charles looked weary, older than usual. "William, there are matters you don't understand. Those pieces, they were personal gifts, never cataloged. There's no scandal, only misunderstanding." William frowned. "And Camilla's son's name being on a note, that's a misunderstanding too?" Charles didn't answer. He simply stared at the window, lost in thought. "Sometimes, my boy, silence keeps his family standing." But William wasn't satisfied. He reached out to the one man he knew might offer insight. Someone outside the British establishment entirely. A man who had once shared tea with the Queen and earned her rare trust. Barack Obama. Through back channels, William sent word, requesting a private call. Within days, arrangements were made for a discreet meeting in London. Obama agreed without hesitation. When he arrived at Kensington, the reunion was warm but short-lived. William wasted no time. "Mr. President, you once spoke privately with my grandmother," he said quietly. "Did she ever mention anything strange? About her personal possessions? Her jewels?" Obama's expression shifted slightly. "Why do you ask?" "Because someone's hiding something," William said. "And I think whatever's buried connects back to her final months." For a long moment, Obama said nothing. Then he leaned forward and spoke softly. "Yes, she told me something once. Not on record, not even meant for history books. She said, 'The crown holds more than symbols. It holds secrets. And someday, someone will dig too deep.'" William's heart pounded. "Mr. President," he whispered, "I think that day has come." And as the two men locked eyes, a storm gathered silently over the Thames. The meeting between Prince William and President Obama was supposed to be quiet, an informal catch-up between old allies. Yet as the palace clock struck noon, the air in the Kensington drawing room felt dense, like history itself was leaning in to listen. Obama stood near the window, hands folded, gazing at the drizzle streaking the glass. "You know," he began with a faint smile, "your grandmother never liked cloudy days. She used to say they made the jewels look sad." William managed a small smile. "She said the same to me once. But I think she meant something deeper." He leaned forward. "Mr. President, I believe the jewels that were found, the ones my grandmother wore during your visit, are part of something bigger, maybe even something she wanted hidden." Obama turned, studying him. "You're suggesting she left a trail?" "Not intentionally," William said. "But if Camilla's son found them and they were hidden after her death, then someone must have been protecting a message she didn't want lost." Obama nodded slowly. "She spoke often about legacy, not just the monarchies, but humanity's. She said symbols outlive truth unless someone dares to question them. Maybe that's what she meant by secrets." The room fell silent again, save for the faint ticking of the clock. William sighed. If the jewels were personal, not state property, their removal wouldn't be illegal. But the concealment, the timing, it feels like something more. Obama looked thoughtful. "When I met her, she hinted at something called the Windsor Accord. I assumed it was a diplomatic arrangement. She never elaborated, but she mentioned it was sealed, literally, in the royal vault, marked by one of her personal brooches." William's eyes widened. "That brooch was in the box." The former president nodded. "Then maybe what you're chasing isn't death at all. Maybe it's the resurfacing of something she meant to keep buried, until the right hands came along." Outside, thunder rolled faintly in the distance. Meanwhile, in Buckingham Palace, the king was pacing. Camilla sat quietly by the fireplace, her face pale, a letter trembling in her hand. "They're meeting," she said softly. "William and Obama." Charles stopped. "You're sure?" She nodded. "I still have friends at Kensington. They told me Obama landed this morning." "Charles, if they uncover what your mother hid, the press won't stay quiet. Not this time." The king rubbed his temples. "Then we make sure they find nothing. The monarchy has survived scandal before. It won't survive betrayal." But even as he said it, his tone lacked conviction. Deep down, Charles knew that some truths couldn't be buried forever. Across town, the rain had eased into mist. William and Obama walked to the palace gardens under a shared umbrella, voices low. Obama asked, "If you find something, what will you do with it? Expose it?" William hesitated. "That depends on what it is. If it's simply a personal matter, I'll protect her privacy. But if it's something that threatens the crown's integrity, I won't stay silent, even if it means turning against my own blood." Obama gave him a long, measured look. "That's what makes you different, William. She knew you'd carry both duty and conscience. Not many can balance the two." As they reached the garden gate, A palace aide hurried toward them, breathless. "Your Royal Highness, urgent message from Windsor." William unfolded the note. His eyes flicked across the lines, his expression darkening. "Royal Guard Whittaker hospitalized. Accident during transport." Spoke a second box before losing consciousness. Obama's voice hardened. "Second box." William's jaw tightened. "There's more, and someone doesn't want us to find it." Without another word, he motioned for his car. At St. Thomas Hospital, Thomas Whittaker lay pale against the white sheets, a bandage around his head. When William entered, the guard tried to sit up. "Stay down, Thomas," William said gently. "You're safe." Thomas managed a faint smile. "Safe is a strong word, sir. What happened?" "They tried to move me," Thomas whispered. "Said it was standard procedure. I knew something was wrong when they changed the route halfway. One of the cars rammed us off the road near Lambeth Bridge. I kept hold of the map." William leaned closer. "What map?" "In the box." There was a small piece of parchment folded behind the brooch. "Coordinates. Windsor Castle." His breathing grew labored. "There's another vault." Obama exchanged a glance with William. "A second vault," he murmured. "Hidden in plain sight." Thomas nodded weakly. "They'll try to erase it." "Don't let them." Moments later, alarms blipped on the monitor. Nurses rushed in. William stepped back, his expression grim, as they worked to stabilize him. Outside the room, Obama placed a hand on William's shoulder. "He risked everything. Whatever's at those coordinates, it matters." William nodded. "Then we find it before they do." That night, while the city slept, 2 cars slipped quietly out of London, one carrying William and a small security detail, the other with Obama beside him, silent, focused. They arrived at Windsor just past midnight, the castle looming like a sleeping titan in the fog. The guards on duty recognized the prince and allowed passage without question. Inside, the corridors echoed with their footsteps until they reached the old chapel wing, the section long sealed after the Queen's funeral. William pushed open a heavy oak door. Dust danced in the moonlight. "There," Obama said, pointing. A section of the stone floor bore faint carvings, a royal insignia surrounded by Latin text. William knelt, tracing the letters. "Vera Fides," he read softly. "True faith." He pressed one of the symbols. The stone shifted with a low, grinding sound. A panel lifted, revealing a narrow stairway descending into darkness. For a moment neither spoke. Then William said quietly, "Whatever's down there, it's her final message." They descended slowly, the air growing cooler, the only sound their echoing steps. At the bottom was a small chamber, no larger than the study, and at its center, another box. William opened it carefully. Inside lay more jewels, but beneath them, wrapped in linen, was a sealed envelope addressed in the Queen's hand. "To the future custodians of the crown, and to the friends of truth." Obama exhaled softly. "She meant this for us." William unfolded the letter. The words were short, but heavy with meaning. "Legacy without honesty is illusion. These jewels mark the moments I trusted both family and nations. If they resurface, let them remind you. The crown's power lies not in secrecy, but in courage." For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence felt sacred. Finally, William whispered, "She knew. She foresaw this." Obama smiled faintly. "She always did have a way of being one step ahead." As they stood there in the dim light, William felt something shift within him. Not just clarity, but purpose. The crown wasn't about control. It was about truth. He turned to Obama. "It's time the world saw her legacy for what it truly was." Obama nodded. "Then let's make sure they hear from you." Outside, dawn broke over Windsor, washing the towers in gold. The Queen's secrets were no longer buried, but unveiling them would come at a cost. Because back in London, someone else was already moving to stop him. Morning sunlight spilled to the windows of Kensington Palace, bathing the marble floors in a quiet gold. But peace was nowhere to be found. For Prince William, the night at Windsor had changed everything. The Queen's letter still sat folded inside his jacket. A message of truth, courage, and legacy, but he knew exposing could fracture the very institution he was born to protect. He stood by the window, watching the city wake. Then came the sound of soft footsteps behind him. Kate entered the room, her face calm but her eyes sharp. "You didn't sleep?" she said quietly. William shook his head. "No, I couldn't." Kate walked to him and took his hand. "Whatever it is, you're not facing alone." He turned, meeting her gaze. "Kate, if I do what I'm thinking, if I reveal what she wrote, it could shake everything. The monarchy, the family, even my father." She squeezed his hand. "Then maybe it's time it shook. She trusted you. Will, maybe this is what she wanted, not silence, but honesty." Her words settled deep in his chest. Kate always had a way of cutting through the fog with simple truth. William unfolded the Queen's letter and read it again, quietly, as if to himself. "Legacy without honesty is illusion. The crown's power lies not in secrecy, but in courage." He looked up. "Then courage it is." At Buckingham Palace, the king sat in his private study. The room smelled faintly of old books and cedar polish. Camilla was nearby, sipping tea, but her hands trembled slightly. "You know he'll go public," she said softly. "William's never been one to bluff." Charles sighed, weary. "If he does, the papers will twist it into betrayal. They'll make it about division, not truth." "Then stop him," Camilla urged. But Charles's expression was distant. "I'm not sure we should." Camilla blinked. "What?" He looked up slowly. "Mother always said William had her fire. Perhaps this is his moment to prove it." For the first time in years, silence hung between them, not cold but thoughtful. Meanwhile, at Kensington, preparations were already underway. William and Kate had called a private press conference. No cameras yet, just select journalists known for their integrity. Among them were historians, royal correspondents, and representatives from global media, including the BBC and The Guardian. When word leaked, the palace's phones lit up. Advisors panicked. Ministers called. But William didn't back down. "Sir," one aide whispered nervously, "are you certain about this?" "Once it's public, then it's history," William said simply. Kate nodded beside him. "And history deserves truth." At precisely noon, the couple stepped into the royal press room. The air buzzed with quiet tension. Cameras clicked. Reporters murmured. William took the podium, his posture straight, voice steady. "Good afternoon," he began. "In recent days, certain items belonging to my late grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, have resurfaced. These items were never stolen, as some might assume. They were safeguarded, and with them a message." He paused, letting the words hang. "When my grandmother passed, she left more than a crown. She left a code, one built on service, honesty, and courage. Among her personal possessions was a letter meant not just for her family, but for the future of this nation." He unfolded the paper slowly. Cameras zoomed in. He read, "Legacy without honesty is illusion. The crown's power lies not in secrecy, but in courage." The room went silent. William continued, his tone firm but warm. "She believed the monarchy should never fear truth. And today, I honor her by sharing this message. What was hidden was not a scandal. It was a reminder that leadership means accountability, even when it hurts." Kate stepped forward then, her voice soft but resonant. "We have a duty, not just to our titles, but to the people. The Queen's message was one of light in dark times. It belongs to all of you now." For a long moment, the hall was utterly still. Then came the sound of gentle applause, hesitant at first, then growing stronger. Some reporters wiped their eyes. Others simply nodded, understanding the gravity of what they had just witnessed. Outside, the crowd gathered by the gates began to cheer, not for scandal, not for gossip, but for something purer, a moment of truth that transcended tradition. That evening, as the sun set over London, news channels across the world broadcast a headline: "Prince William reveals the Queen's hidden message, a legacy of truth." Clips of the speech played beside images of the Queen smiling, her brooch glinting in the light. Analysts debated, commentators praised, and for once, Even critics seemed humbled. At the White House, Obama watched the broadcast with quiet satisfaction. "You did it, Your Majesty," he murmured. "You raised a man who understood." But not everyone was celebrating. In the dim halls of the palace, a figure stood by the window, the same liaison officer who had once confiscated the jewels. He spoke quietly into a phone. "Yes, the message is out. No, it wasn't what we expected. But the prince has changed the narrative. The old secrets won't work anymore." He hung up, his expression unreadable. Then, for the first time, he smiled faintly. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. Later that night, William and Kate sat together in their private garden, away from the noise of the world. The air was cool, and the city's lights shimmered in the distance. Kate leaned her head on his shoulder. "She'd be proud of you," she said softly. William smiled faintly. "I hope so. But I think she'd also tell me I took far too long." They both laughed quietly. "She always said," Kate added, "the truth may shake the walls, but it never breaks a foundation." He nodded. Then maybe the walls needed shaking. The night was peaceful, the kind of silence that carried meaning rather than emptiness. For the first time in months, William felt a strange calm settle over him. Not triumph, not relief, but something deeper. Purpose. The jewels had been found, the secret revealed. But more importantly, the monarchy had been reminded of what it truly stood for. Not wealth, not ceremony, but courage and honesty. And as the moonlight touched the garden roses, William whispered, "Your Majesty, your legacy is safe now." Far across the ocean, in Washington, D.C., a courier arrived at Obama's residence with a sealed envelope. Inside was a single brooch, the same diamond one that started it all, and a handwritten note in William's hand. For the man who reminded us that truth outlives power. Obama smiled, setting the letter down beside a framed photo of him and the Queen, taken years ago. "And power," he said softly, "is nothing without truth." Epilogue. Weeks later, Buckingham Palace quietly unveiled a new exhibit. The Queen's legacy, the courage to speak. At its center stood the recovered jewels, gleaming beneath the glass, and beside them, the Queen's final letter. Tourists came and went, some with tears, others with awe. But every person who left carried the same thought. For all her grace and restraint, Queen Elizabeth had left behind a lesson, one the next generation had finally learned. And in the reflection of the glass, beneath the glow of the jewels, it almost seemed as if she were smiling.